Pretty close. Hey, we're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Bearded Men of Real Estate Show. This is episode 134. So we are 3 years into the show. We appreciate you joining us today. If you are watching us live on Facebook and YouTube, please share the show. We can't put that in the comments because, of course, you know we will get depressed for that or suppressed for that. But we also want you to comment live because then we can display your comments live on the screen and then we can talk about you or your comment. We got a whole bunch of news stories to cover, but we're also broadcasting in one other place. We're live on Clubhouse at the same time that we are broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube. So I think we're the first podcast. We've been doing it 3 weeks now. I think we're the first podcast to go live in all three places, breaking records. There should be like a Guinness book or something of this, but we're excited to be in all three locations. Last week we had a lot of engagement on Clubhouse and we're able to bring up the people in Clubhouse to comment. So if you're watching this in Clubhouse, be sure you raise your hand and then we can get to you and bring you up into the show. So Dan, say hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
This is Dan Ludwig. He is a real estate agent in LA. I'm a real estate agent in Arkansas, and we've been doing this show for a while now.
Yeah, we're just old men at this point as far as the show goes. I mean, geez.
Old, grizzled agents. Well, part of the reason we got into this is because podcasting kind of died off a while back, if you recall.
Yeah.
And then it started to make a huge comeback. And during that comeback, we decided, okay, let's do the podcasting thing for real. But if you go and look at our podcast, it's not like it's been around for a very long time. The podcast itself, I mean, I think we're only 16 episodes in on the podcast because the previous podcast was censored and deleted.
Yeah.
And all kinds of stuff because of the Anchor FM and Spotify partnership. So,
yeah. And we always have considered ourselves a podcast. And it's really paid off because we're still number one in, where is it? Korea? Number 16 in Korea,
no, Taiwan.
Taiwan.
Ironically, do you know who is in Taiwan? William Tong. He is in Taiwan, and he may be the reason why we are the number 16 news show, not just real estate show. We're the number 16 news show in Taiwan.
So we had to step up our game. We were already doing the YouTube thing,
right.
and Ray wanted to add Clubhouse, so we got to step up our game.
That's right. And if you are joining us in Clubhouse, please ping people because when you ping people, it lets people know that there is a show going on. And if you have something to say, you can just raise your hand and we can add you to the stage. Thanks, Thomas, Stuart, Whitney, Wei Yang, and Jane. They're watching us live right now in Clubhouse. So ping some other agents or people that you know would be interested in real estate information. Let's go to some comments already. Mike Elizabeth Brodell. Zillow took over ShowingTime. Are we talking about that today? And Warren Buffett just invested in Verizon and Chevron Oil. So what's coming? I need bearded predictions. Yes, we are talking about that today. That's probably the biggest news story. And we're going to be talking about the industry reaction to that story. So we have some heads of companies, some people that have been on our show in the past, actually Nick Bailey, who's one of the leaders in RE/MAX. We are going to talk about his response, Gary Keller, and then Brad Inman. Melissa Mars said, hey guys, how's the snow rate? It is still coming down. We're supposed to get like another 8 inches today. So it's we got 10 to 12 inches the other day. And we're supposed to get even more today. So it's pretty nuts. If you haven't seen it, check out my Instagram and you'll see some sled rides down our street. It's been pretty fun. Matt Klein said we have way too much here. It won't stop until like 11 tonight, right? It's still snowing right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, and if you guys didn't watch the show or listen to the show last week, we all learned that Matt is 22.
Yeah, Matt is a youngin'. All right, so let me talk about the stories that we're going to talk about. And Dan, before we get into the show, I want you to tell everyone what the show is actually all about. But here are the stories we're going to cover in today's show. Zillow buying ShowingTime. Yes. We're not just going to talk about, we are going to talk about that acquisition, but we're also going to talk about the industry response and if it was warranted response or if it was a little overreaction or if we should all be a little worried and afraid. If you haven't seen the YouTube thumbnail, it looks like Zillow versus the realtors. And so we'll see. Dan is going to talk about home builder confidence improving despite record high lumber prices. I'm going to talk about mortgage demand falling further as rates rise at its fastest pace in months. Dan's got a HUD article talking about the extension of forbearance due to the pandy. And remember, we don't say the actual word because if we say the actual word, then we'll get suppressed by all the censors and everything. We're also going to talk about CoStar making a late bid for CoreLogic. But Dan, before we get into all these really great articles, can you tell everyone what BMORE is actually all about?
You know what? I'd love to. Now, when Ray and I met on the the interwebs here. It's I don't know. Let's just say it's years and years ago.
Yeah, real.
I had an idea for a show because I am in fact a bearded man in real estate. And when I met Ray, I noticed something very interesting about him.
Oh,
he hates mopeds. Did you guys know that about him? He hates mopeds.
I think the reason why I don't like them is because when I was in high school, I wanted one and I could not have one. My parents were like, "No, you're not getting a moped." So from then on, I was just, every time I see a moped, I'm like, "That's not a real motorcycle."
Completely made up fact about Ray, but I hit on a nerve apparently.
I did ride Vespas in Thailand though, and that was pretty fun. But anyway,
that has to be fun. But but Ray also had actually a layout, a format for a show, and it's the same format we use today. But what I also noticed is he loves giving value up front to not only his clients, but just to humans overall. So the show's about being more as an agent, but also being more as a human.
That's right. And one of the things we think add value to the conversation is when realtors actually know what the heck is going on in the industry. So it's important to us to do this show because you can come to one place and it's just our show. You can go to one spot and know everything that happened in the real estate industry over the whole week and what's going on in the economy normally. We also will put timestamps in this. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you're like, "Oh my God, guys, get to the show," we're going to put timestamps in there so that you just click the timestamp and zoom right to the show or right to the part of the show that you like. We will also cut up each of these articles and each of the sentiments from Nick and Gary and Brad. And we will have those in a separate series called BMORE Chops. It's a play on words because chops. Anyway, those are just clips of the show that we will use to dispensate, I guess. Distribute small segments of the
disseminate
show, disseminate, whatever. We're gonna release small segments of the show so for people could consume them in bite-sized portions throughout the week. All right, Dan, you ready to get into this thing?
Absolutely. Feels so good to be in the headlines.
This is your first time. That was our transition into the headlines, which we always announce and talk about that being our transition. Melissa Marr says they are spraying brine on the roads again here. May get nothing or cold. May get nothing or could get 5 inches. That's just how it is here. Love the coastal.
Great prediction.
Brine, which you use to like cook a turkey. Don't you have to brine? You soak it in brine or you cook it in brine?
Yeah. So I would guess it's salty. It's like a salt substitute, I guess. I don't know.
I guess so. Like a saline solution. All right. So let's get into the first article. As Dan plays with his mic, and
I know. I apologize.
We all hear the shiver and the shake.
I apologize.
So this article is coming to us first on Inman, but this was released like hours, maybe within minutes of our show ending last week. And I got so many texts. People were blowing up the DMs. They were saying, "Oh my gosh, you guys didn't cover this." I'm like, "Well, no, we didn't cover it because it literally just happened." So I think Zillow watches the show.
They waited
until the end of the show, and they're like, "All right, time to release this news." And this is not the first time this has happened. All right, Zillow to acquire Showing for $500 million. The company plans to continue to operate ShowingTime as an open platform for all real estate agents, not just those who partner with Zillow. Okay, so what ShowingTime is, if you're a consumer watching this, you're like, what's the big deal? ShowingTime, we give all of our customers information to ShowingTime and our clients, our sellers mainly. And then ShowingTime, if an agent wants to schedule an appointment, and like I'm doing this podcast, or maybe I'm visiting with someone else, right? And an agent wants to schedule a showing on your listing, they'll contact ShowingTime, the showing service, who then contacts you via text or phone call, and they will set up that showing and schedule it with you so that you know when to be out of the house, you know someone's coming, etc. So not a big deal. Zillow acquires the showing service. What's the big deal? All right. So Zillow announced Wednesday it's entered into an agreement to acquire real estate showing management and market analytics company ShowingTime for $500 million. Company said it would continue to operate. So this is Errol Samuelson. He is Zillow's chief industry development officer. He says, quote, "In many ways, this acquisition is thematically similar to other work we've been doing. This idea that when there are broad industry opportunities or challenges, we can apply technologies to help fix those, not just for our partners or premier agent customers, but for the industry in general." So what Zillow sees is that, hey guys, let's just kind of help the entire industry by taking this technology and making it better for everyone. That's kind of what they're saying is the shtick.
Right.
It's similar here with showing time. One of the things we recognize here is that it's a real challenge having a qualified buyer who wants to see a property actually get into that property. So I'm not sure what that real challenge is, other than maybe some of the news that we heard earlier about when the wasn't it in New Jersey? Was it New Jersey that the racism stuff was happening and people couldn't get into homes or whatnot, and they were looking for alternate solutions to get people. So that's the most recent news story that I can even think of that they could be referring to as far as qualified buyers not getting in to see homes. Maybe something is afoot where people are filling up the showing times, the showing slots, and they can't get in. I haven't really seen that in a news story or anything later recently. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just a surprisingly high failure rate in the industry just to get a buyer in to see a home. Really?
I
Qualified
don't
buyer?
I
I would
don't
love some
know about
comments,
that one.
especially the Clubhouse folks that are joining us live. I would love to hear your comments. If you're having a problem getting a qualified buyer into a home, is it because of the showing service? Is that the issue?
I
Okay,
mean,
let's
so okay, well, in a level or standard market, right? When we have way more inventory and it's and not necessarily a buyer's or a seller's market.
right.
I mean, you can kind of call same day and hey, I'd like to see. I used to always have like I'd give them an hour notice, like two hours notice to be really good, just to make sure. Because a lot of stuff I don't know how it is across the country, but for us, it's like seller wants an hour notice, seller wants 2 hours notice, whatever it is. But the market's a little bit crazier, and there's more buyers that are clamoring to get into these homes. So I start my showings 2 days in advance now is when I start planning them, and I
Yeah.
haven't had any issues. And I had another agent help me out this weekend because I was out of town, and I planned everything Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and it
Yeah.
was fine and it worked really well. Some through showing time, some through the agent, but so I don't know where that would come from, other than those agents that like try to plan last minute, because then showings are booked. But that's just because a lot of buyers want to see houses, though.
Yeah. Let me bring up Thomas. I'm going to bring up somebody in Clubhouse because I want to hear some feedback, and then we'll get into some of these Facebook comments too that I enjoy seeing. So let me bring up Clubhouse here, and then okay, so let's go to Thomas. Thomas, tell us who you are and where you're working from, and if you could, what's your thoughts on this not being able to get people into showing time or showings?
Hey, so yes, my name is Thomas Santucci. I'm a realtor in Maryland for Long and Foster. So, in our area right now, if you're not on top of it in the coming soon scheduling your showing, it is very hard to get into some certain places because literally there's 25, 30 qualified buyers per house in our area. And the showings are backed up, a few days, and not everyone is doing deadlines because the sellers don't feel like they need to. They're getting 50,000 over asking immediately. There's so many, buyers that have been just shot down so many times they don't care anymore. So they're just offering as much as they can. And so there have been times where I just have to, tell the agent, hey, I'm coming today. I'm just gonna, I have to wait for the person in front, to leave the house for us to see it because everything's just totally backed up before they're presenting, and so that's
So how, can you envision a way in which Zillow would be able to solve this issue by the acquisition of showing time? Like, does them having a showing service help in any way?
No.
no. And I'll tell you what has happened already to me from Zillow acquiring showing time. I had a Zillow lead come in, and they can automatically because showing time. I know not all areas showing time is like what everyone uses, but in our area, that's like the number one way we schedule showings. The lead can automatically schedule and see the availability of a listing and schedule it on their own, and then you get connected with that lead who's already scheduled that time. So you kind of already have to be, ready for whatever time that client picked, and then you have your conversation if it doesn't
Wait,
work.
is that through Zillow or showing time?
Nonetheless, the lead, came
Yeah,
in on a 55 plus community home. They scheduled their own showing and they didn't know it was a 55 plus community, right? So they're scheduling that showing on their own, not even knowing the kind of property it is. And, I think that's just the beginning of some problems because, they're taking up that spot for someone who might want to see that house during that time.
So you're saying that maybe it's not all qualified buyers. I think it's buyers that are scheduling them, but maybe not all qualified buyers. Because if you're not 55 plus scheduling in a 55 plus community, then this should be something that a real estate agent would probably catch. Whereas you have
Right.
the showing service that wouldn't even catch it. Thanks, Thomas, for the input. That's good info. There's a couple of comments that I want to get to in Facebook as well. And if you're just joining us and you're watching in Clubhouse, just raise your hand and we can bring you up to speak. We'd love to have you there. If you have something else to say, you can raise your hand again or kind of flash your mic so I can tell if I see that or if Matt sees that. And we can't hear you on the podcast, or I can't hear you at all until I actually come to you and like say your name, just because of how it works. So Stuart, we'll get to you in just a second. Let me get some of these comments. Adam Johnson says COVID, no overlap showings. That's true. Melissa Mars says, oh wait, we're talking about spraying the brine still. Okay. Christian Harris says, I heard a good point yesterday with ShowingTime having such a large market share. They have enough competition to drive forward any innovation or improvements on their platform. Oh, they don't have enough competition to drive forward. Okay, I see what you're saying. So competition will generate the innovation, but because they're acquiring the biggest dog, then they're not going to innovate as much. Adam Johnson said, I was telling my sellers to leave for the weekend. That usually works.
Yeah.
Mike Elizabeth Brodell says, I would have preferred Zillow create their own platform. ShowingTime can compete and drive technology improvements versus outright controlling every facet of our industry. And Jan Barrett says, need open houses. Yep, that's true. Jan, is that your first? I think that's Jan's first comment ever with us, isn't it, Jan?
I
Thanks for
believe so.
watching the show. Curtis Lee says, Zillow has been integrated with ShowingTime for 5 months now. That's interesting. And Curtis, has anyone ever told you that your avatar looks a little bit like Gary Keller? Do you see that? Do you see the resemblance, Dan?
Yeah, I've always known that he is Gary Keller.
Oh, okay. That's actually Gary Keller watching our show under the auspice of Curtis Lee.
Exactly. There you go.
Mike Elizabeth Rowell says, well, that's slow for a non-approved lead to be able to schedule their own showing. I can't wait for luxury properties to pull out of that racket. Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah. Curtis Lee said the lead went to the agent and confirmed with ShowingTime showing, but if the showing is appropriate, 55 plus, they can cancel, or inappropriate, he says. Yeah. So I think agents would kind of catch some of that stuff that makes somebody not approved. Let me go to Stuart in Clubhouse. Stuart, tell us who you are, where you serve, and what's your take on this part?
My name is Stuart Danger. I am in Atlanta, Georgia, and I work kind of in the Buckhead, Morningside, Brookhaven area. I've heard a lot of different takes on this past couple of days, and I think one of the most important you might have mentioned earlier, sorry if I missed it, was just the amount of the data that they're collecting from this, and it's real-time data for them because they can see. Granted, people can now schedule, however, it's different than it was. Schedule themselves as a lead and go and see a property. Zillow will be able to see in real time what volume is going to different properties. So they actually can actually see the demand for properties in areas, and that helps them on the backside with Zillow's agency as well. So I think that's their huge take on this, is just the amount of real-time data they're getting to almost see the movement, as you say, where money walks. And I think with that in hand, there's a lot of ways this can go. Even when we go into foreclosure market, like these huge hedge funds can see where things are dropping the fastest and where the saturation is, and where companies like BlackRock need to come in and absorb as much as they can in that area. I think Zillow is going to have the hand up on that. But yeah, all the comments on Facebook are right too. I can't wait to see people shy away from this and try and make it work without it. But ShowingTime dominates here in Atlanta for the most part. So this is interesting.
So you're saying, Stuart, that there may be other reasons that Zillow bought this, not just to make a showing service better for the entire industry, but maybe there's some data that they could collect that would be incredibly profitable for them to have. And Stuart's take on that is one that I've kind of heard echoed throughout the industry, that with the data of seeing where properties are being acquired, then they can use that with their iBuyer service, and then they can make moves as people are just being shown homes. They can make moves on properties, and it could open up inventory, right? I mean, if they're able to find properties and make moves on those. But we as real estate agents can also watch where they're listing, because if it takes them just a day or two to list a property and they're making moves in parts of town where they believe people are seeing it, then we can also follow those trends as real estate agents and follow what they're doing if we wanted to. So we might be a little bit delayed, but it's not a tactic that we also don't have at our fingertips just by watching Zillow's acquisitions of properties. But I think it may be more broader than that. There's also some concern about Zillow now having all of the contact information and data for all of our sellers. That's something that I think we should probably look at the end user agreements and the privacy policies with ShowingTime to figure out, is that something they keep and retain on file, or do they dump that information? Who owns that information? I think that's just being a good steward. I don't think that's worried about Zillow taking over the industry, but I think that is being a good steward of your consumer data that consumers have entrusted us with. Right? They tell us, here, I'm going to give you my phone number, but I don't want a bunch of people to have it, or I'm going to give you my cell phone or my email address, but I don't want a bunch of people to have it. And then we turn it over to Zillow in a roundabout way. And that's a little bit concerning for a lot of folks. Okay, so that's the general story. Let me get into the reaction. Let's talk about the industry reaction, which we've already heard a little bit through Clubhouse and through the comments on Facebook. But let's first go to Mr. Gary Keller. Now, Gary Keller is the
Curtis Lee.
Yeah, Gary Keller is Curtis Lee. Gary Keller is he's not a CEO anymore. Founder of Keller Williams. That's what he's called now. He's no longer the CEO. He's the executive chairman of KWX, which is the Keller Williams holding company that has more than just a real estate company. Now they're into title. Now they're into lending. They're into a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're looking for a measured response, you won't find it from Gary Keller. He's usually staunch one way or the other. All right. So this is his quote. Never before in history has who you're in business with been a vote for the future of the industry, Keller said, while appearing with Jason Abrams, Keller's vice president of industry, and Jay Papazan, Keller Williams vice president of learning. Quote, if you write a check to Zillow, you're voting for a Zillow world, Keller said. If you write a check to Keller Williams, you're voting for a Keller Williams world. Okay, so they see themselves as the top direct competitor of Zillow, and Keller Williams does have now a 10% market share over the U.S., and that is a lot. Quote, this is a fight. There's no way around it. Let me get to another quote. If they added a lockbox to that, that would be the end of that, Keller said. It would be it. I could find a home. I could make an appointment. I could go see it. I can get inside it. All right. So y'all can see more comments on this from Inman's article. Just having a website with listing in it isn't going to have to be the entire transaction. He's kind of talking about the history of Zillow. What's really interesting to me on this, and I think it's disingenuous to say that Keller Williams didn't have a part in Zillow's growth. When I went to Keller Williams conferences and Zillow had a booth there and was paying Gary Keller to be there and covering part of the sponsorship of the Keller Williams conference, and also had time on stage to speak and talk about what they're doing in the industry. So to say Keller Williams has no blame or fault and has always been against Zillow would be completely wrong. Right. I think if you take a check from Zillow and then promote Zillow to all of your agents who now make up 10% of the industry, you're just as culpable as an agent who's using them to buy their database and generate leads. And I would say maybe even more culpable, because an agent that's giving money to Zillow and then Zillow's giving that agent Zillow's database, that seems like a fair exchange. But if you out of one side of your mouth say Zillow's evil, and then out the other side of your mouth take their check and put them on stage, come on. I mean, what are you doing? So, hey, this is amazing. We have a YouTube comment.
There you go.
Mario Flores. Hey guys, do you think real estate agents want a Zillow alternative and will use it? Currently building an alternative now. There you go. Mario's building his alternative. I think so, but I think the leader of alternatives would likely be CoStar, that also just acquired HomeSnap and is looking to acquire CoreLogic, which we'll get to at the end of the show. So I do think real estate agents are looking for an alternative, but I don't know that one. I mean, they made the big mistake by selling realtor.com, right?
Leasing it. They still own it.
Right. And we'll see if they can ever get that back. But real estate boards and agents across the United States need to make a national search website with accurate data and linked straight to those real estate agents that have those properties listed and the companies that represent those properties, or there's no hope. Like, they have to do that within a year, or it's just going to be third parties all over the place.
It's completely imperative. It's completely imperative that this happens. And we've been talking about since day one on the show, pretty much. And the platform already exists. HAR does it. Houston area realtors, they already do it. They have their own platform that controls their own listings. And
And Zillow can't really get a foot in the Houston market very well because it's so well managed by the realtors who are doing their job and making sure consumers get the info. The old adage of like holding back the information so that the consumer can't have it, so they have to call you, is ridiculous and antiquated, and you need to get over yourself, especially if you're leading one of these boards and you feel that way. I mean, our board here locally, I can't get sale data in order to send my customers a comparative market analysis that's anything apart from the NAR RPR that I can't do automated. I can't do an automated comparative market analysis for you just to let you know what the crap is going on in your neighborhood, because our board says we're not going to send sale data. Why the heck not? Zillow's getting the sale data.
Right. They're getting it anyway.
Real estate agent utilize that sale data with whatever platform I want to inform the consumer. And
you pay dues to get that data.
Yes. And this is the kind of ridiculousness that will kill the boards, that will kill the realtor long term. It's not Zillow. It's the realtors. It's the inadequacy of the accurate information that we claim to have, but we're putting it behind essentially a contact wall. Why not just give the info?
Why not just give it? I mean, and this isn't a new thing. Zillow didn't jump into the market. What did they start? 2007, 2004? So they've been around a long time, and this isn't a new thing. So the data's already got out there. However they get it, whether or not they steal it, whether or not they get IDX feeds, whatever they do, but however they get the data, it's already out there. That's how consumers are searching now. There's no platform other than HAR that we know of that has it where it's consumer facing. And we use a company called Boomtown, and they have a mobile app now that I send to all my clients that are looking for homes. And it's pretty good, but it's still nowhere near. I mean, you got to think about it. It's 15 years behind Zillow and Trulia and Redfin. And so that user friendliness is just not there. So that's why I need to go back to say it is imperative that and all the data is ours, right? That's all of our brokers' data. When we get a listing, that data or that listing is our broker's data. And then when we put it in the MLS, then it goes out to our local board and so on, and out to all the different websites. But imagine if we controlled it. We were the one spot that it came from, and we were public facing. It would be a win-win on both sides. So instead of, and I don't know what Gary Keller, and I know that I'm offending Curtis at this point, so I'm just going to keep calling him Gary Keller. I don't know what he's saying. Who's paying which specific thing he's asking, Ray? What
pays for that?
What pays for that? But our dues pay for that. I just re-upped my dues, and it costs me about $1,000 a year, and that's dues that go to NAR, that dues that go to my local board, and then covers a bunch of other stuff. But instead of all these commercials and stuff, what if we had commercials and a website that all went together, and that explained who we quote unquote are, instead of a commercial with a bunch of funny buyers in it doing weird things that doesn't really help us. It makes us look like we're trying to keep up with Old Spice as far as their commercial games go. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I think we have a lot of opportunity right here, but it needs to happen now.
Christian Harris has a point that we kind of brought up last week when we said, is it okay to even talk about Zillow? He says, I love when people try to use the NAR code of ethics to stifle free speech and opinion and analysis of Zillow acquisition, as if it ever stopped others from poo-pooing on alternative business models like EXP. Yes,
Well, EXP.
that was the exact example that we used last week too.
Yeah.
Because and even like people that talk about Keller Williams' business model, it's stupid to be able to not talk about a business model. You could talk about a business model, but maybe
100%.
talking about how they do business as far as ethically, that should be poo-pooed. Michael Elizabeth Rodell said, well, no one wants to take credit for being the Frankenstein. They want to keep the focus on fighting the monster, quote, together, and hope you forget who is creating it. That's exactly what.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
Mike is good. Mike is really
yeah,
good.
I like that, Mike. Mario Flores, it's going to be agent friendly. That's good. Guide buyers throughout the transaction. Lender agents online would love to talk if we can. Hey, send me a message and I'll take a look at it. And but don't be upset when I tell you all the reasons it stinks. But I would tell you those reasons it stinks in hopes that you could make
to better it. It's
I
constructive.
actually analyze a lot of software for people. I do a lot of trials, and then I send them my notes, and they say, "Okay, this gives us some notes." So I'd be happy to do that. Ramsey Stewart, he says it's overused, but agents have to start showing value. Each transaction should be given appropriate value. Agents together, regardless of where you fly your flag, have to show value together. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I think. The part of the value needs to be providing that information to the public. So let's talk about who's to blame. Brad Inman has an article, an opinion
You're
article.
blaming Brad Inman?
No, I'm not blaming Brad Inman, but he has an article about who to blame.
Okay. All right.
And he says, don't blame Zillow, blame your leaders. Zillow delivered tangible value to agents while the legacy industry stood still. Now Zillow has become the industry octopus and its tentacles are reaching everywhere.
So I'll just say what he's saying there is that there are still agents that say fax your offer over. And that's exactly what he's saying. We we're the dinosaurs not reacting to the incoming giant comet that was about to murder us all.
Meteor?
Yeah, the meteor that was about to asteroid that was about to murder us all, and we didn't react. And now, and Ray always says it the best is Zillow made the calls that we didn't.
Yeah, there you go. Michelle West said, who is representing the client in the new world? Yeah, that's a good question. If Zillow is also a buyer, then can they also represent the seller?
Right.
Keeper Skelton's on our side. If there is sides, he's a lender. He says Zillow shows zero value. Well, most consumers would disagree with you because I get sent people looking on Zillow all the time. All right, so this is Brad's article. Let's kind of summarize it a little bit. I'll go to a couple of quotes, but if you want to read the whole thing, it's on Inman. I don't know if this one's behind the registration paywall or not, but it's a pretty good little article. Last week, an influential real estate executive called me lamenting that realtors are whining about Zillow buying ShowingTime. He showed a level of disdain towards his own real estate agents. No doubt that agents can be raucous with a bunch with wildly divergent opinions. Consider some stormed the U.S. Capitol last month. Yeah, that's right. And some marched in Black Lives Matter. So I don't know how that compares to this, but I guess he's just showing the passion that's in our industry. Let's see. I'm looking for, yes, some agents had to be led into the future, but good ones were already there, waiting for their broker owners to deliver tech goods. When they didn't, others stepped in and filled the void. Zillow harnessed the power of the internet and delivered tangible value to agents while the legacy industry stood still. Let it unfold. Now Zillow has become the industry's octopus. Okay. Consider the record. So then he goes up. How did broker owners give up their valuable role of providing leads to agents? So as if, okay. First, I take issue with that. The original purpose of the broker was to apprentice, as a verb, the real estate agent, where the real estate agent would come under them almost like a journeyman in electrical, right? And you had to be a real estate agent for 2 years. And then once you were, you could go out on your own and become your real estate broker. That was the original intent of the broker agent relationship. And it's an apprenticeship. And you would learn the ropes, you would learn the legalities, you would learn how to make it, how to generate leads, you'd learn all that stuff. Then there was a change that happened and brokers began to think, oh, I could take more of their split. I could have more of them under me. I could train more. And basically these big clearinghouses were created, these giant brokerages where you have one principal broker and 820 agents. There's no way possible for one broker to apprentice that many agents. So companies
No.
came in and said, hey, we'll create the training, we'll create the materials, we'll create the marketing. You just sign the paperwork. So now you have companies that are in charge of training and quote unquote apprenticing. But once that agent is available to get their broker's license, those companies just want to keep them and keep them in the systems. So they've been teaching them how to generate leads as a model, and giving leads as a broker to an agent was never really part of the model until more recently, when online lead gen became a thing. And when that
But
became a
even that was reactionary and too late.
Right. And even when that became a thing, we would then have clients contacting me when I ran my team. How many leads will you give me? Like, what? Like, I'll teach you how to generate an untold number of leads.
Right.
It's not about getting the leads. And if Facebook changes their algorithm, suddenly the leads are shut down or slowed for a couple of months until you figure out the new algorithm. Or when Google changes how they do search, you have to figure all that stuff out. Going to a brokerage for quote unquote leads is the wrong reason to go to the brokerage. But needless, Brad says, how did broker owners give up their valuable role of providing leads to agents? Many failed to make the necessary technology improvements. Consequently, their value diminished. Why hasn't the large real estate franchise invited consumer brand to build its own compelling consumer search engine? Now, this is a great point. Some of the biggest brands in the industry have not come together and tried to build a huge search engine that would benefit all real estate agents or realtors. Neither has the National Association of Realtors, that would be the prime spot, in my opinion, to gather all realtors, because we pay them dues
Right.
for a code of ethics right now.
And
That's
that's
the
the
biggest distinguishing characteristic. And
Yeah.
in my area, access to the MLS.
Yeah.
Which in the future, I think that's going to be split. I've said that time and time again here. I don't think they can let that stand, as now they can let anyone in to the lot boxes that is a real estate agent. But that's just until Zillow buys ShowingTime. Or not ShowingTime. Once Zillow buys ShowingTime and also buys the Supra and Century Lock, then it's no holds barred, right? Okay. Why did a large real estate company buy ShowingTime, Loop, or Trulia? That's a good question. Why didn't they acquire them? So the primary reason why they didn't acquire them is because the real estate industry was so focused on a horizontal acquisition and not vertical integration. Horizontal acquisition is when a real estate company looks over and says, you know what, we should start a mortgage company. You know what, we should start a title company. Those are horizontal acquisition. If they were looking at vertical integration, they would be looking at things like builder developer relationships and seeing how they could control inventory. They would be looking things like search engines to get the buyer at the top of the funnel. But they didn't. And they looked and focused more on the horizontal acquisition because it made more immediate money and is easier than creating a technology challenged search engine for consumers. All right. A couple more points here, and then we'll kind of open it up to comment, and also want to open it up to the clubhouse and see if there's anyone that wants to make a comment on it. Why did industry leaders remain silent when agents began to complain loudly that Zillow is exercising too much clout with their consumers? Why didn't the MLS execs create local portals like Houston Acquisition Association of Realtors? That's exactly what we've been saying. Why did industry leaders look the other way when all their MLS organizations got wined and dined and received payments to sell out their data to Zillow?
Which is what you said about KW.
Right. Zillow exploited the industry's vulnerabilities and used them to build its business. It became a broker by default. No one is evil in this story. Instead, it's a tale of winners and losers. Who is winning has become more clear. For the losers, the results are their own doing, and the day of reckoning is coming. Is this game over? Okay. So we've had a lot of comments on the Facebook. Michelle West says broker assumes liability. Adam Johnson said, I've been a premier agent for Zillow for years. Top leadership has always been trying to get the agent to do things that they should already be doing, like follow-up and communication.
Right.
Yeah. Like my
So
Zillow, my Zillow rep is more on it than most brokers in the area about like, hey, we noticed that your ratios are this, what's the status? We noticed that your call ratios are this. How can you get it up? And like, man, like they're more on top of it than I am with my own numbers.
Well, and that's where like there's another service out there called Homelight, and Homelight is the same way. They'll drop you. They if you're not following up, you're not converting it. I think it's 20%. So if you get 10 leads, you need to convert 2 of those.
Right.
then they'll drop you. And then the other thing too, going back to like the broker thing, brokers are almost worthless. Right there to me, and to combine with the other comment is that brokers take on the liabilities. I don't want the liability. I don't necessarily ever want to be a broker. But it is because I started with KW and it was like so exciting. And I got so much focus because I was this new agent. So the first year, and then I figured out how to kind of get business, but I did it kind of on my own, kind of had a partner, but I was never really taught how to prospect. They just say, here's all these events and here's how to do, here's what the RPA, the residential purchase agreement has in it, and all this stuff. And then you kind of get to the middle ground. You're not a top producer. You're not a brand new agent. They kind of forget about you because there's 300 agents in your office, but what that does is it breeds all these agents that don't know how to actually get business. And if you're just given leads by your broker, that's a great, like, I guess you could say a worm on a hook, but converting is the biggest thing. So it really, I think brokers do add value, but it's very rare that one, like the one I'm, the brokers that I'm lucky enough to have, Chris and Drea, they really push their value and they really push you to be better, but not just anyone can join the team or join the office. You have to be a producer. You have to want to work. And if I don't work, my leads get shut off and I can get kicked off the team or out of the, like, I have a lot of responsibility to keep up with every day. If I don't get leads. I don't get, and then they also teach you how to convert leads. And then we go through a lot of training every day, and every week just to be top agents, So I think part of it is the broker's fault that there aren't more brokers who are in it for the right reason, kind of going to Adam's point where you're trying to put out legit agents that actually produce and care about their job. They don't just get in because it's like, oh, I can sell a few houses and make a few extra grand a year.
Yeah. Adam Johnson brings up a good point. When I was talking about brokers not really providing much lead gen, he said that's not true. People would fight over phone time. That's gone, but it was lead gen for years. That is true. People used to call brokerages and they would sit and answer the phones. Ramsey said, like, consumers are figuring out how to get around the system of real estate agents or figuring out how to bypass the brokers. Michelle West says, wasn't RPR supposed to be the big realtor dashboard? It was supposed to be the big realtor dashboard, but it failed and then they sold it. And now it's a NAR RPR is a good little CMA tool.
I don't even know. I don't even use it. Is that what it is now?
Yeah. NAR owns CenturyLock. I didn't know that. That's good.
So I wanted to touch on that.
Hopefully that's good.
Well, CenturyLock though, think about that's good. We own it. We could use that, right? But I don't know. I don't use CenturyLock, but like a lot of San Diego area agents do. So if you go further south of me, you start seeing that you have to call for a 1-day code. But does it track the same, agent data? Like, does it say who logged in? Does it say when they opened up the CenturyLock? Does it say when they called it? Or is it just a code you can pull? I don't know. But also think about the cost. If all of a sudden NAR said, now we're using CenturyLock. If Ray has 25 lock boxes, he has to get rid of all those that cost, I don't know, 100, 150 bucks each, right?
Yeah.
You have to get rid of all those super lock boxes, the iBoxes. You have to get rid of those and buy a bunch of new lock boxes. The cost for every single broker out there or every agent or team, it's going to be pretty big. And then we're going to have to pay for a new service just to go right from ShowingTime.
We have Supra. So if Zillow acquires Supra, then what would happen? That's my biggest question. All right.
And I mean, they're on their way.
A couple more comments. Adam Johnson said brokers just insure to protect themselves against liability. They don't actually take on any real liability. Most agents pay for that insurance themselves. That's true. And in most contracts, that liability goes back onto the agent as well. And then let's see. Ramsey Stewart says barrier to entry is too low. We're going to get to comments from Nick Bailey in just a second that kind of have to do with that. Floor time is still a thing. Melissa Marr says I've done 5 deals with floor time. That's funny. All right, and then here's one question that I think everyone wants to know, that may be the most important question of all. Madi Noah says, are you brothers?
Yes,
brothers from another mother. That's it.
Well, and we actually went to different high schools together.
Yeah, at different times.
About 10 years apart.
All right, so let's get to Nick Bailey's response. So in my opinion, and this is the Remax exec, Nick Bailey used to be with Century 21, was responsible for a lot of the rebranding. He then went to Remax to be back home closer to his family. And when he did, we had him on our show. So you guys can go look up that. It was a really good show. Nick is an awesome guy, gave us some good time and some great opinions on some of the articles that we covered. So Inman interviews Nick Bailey, and he has a message for agents concerned about the move. And his message is, don't panic. His quote, "Don't panic," Bailey said Monday morning during the virtual town hall session hosted on the company's Facebook page. This is a technology company acquiring a technology company to create access to properties. I'm sure they will innovate, iterate, and evolve it. Bailey previously worked for, this is interesting. Bailey previously worked for a company, Market Leader, that was acquired by Zillow in 2014 and subsequently spent 3 years serving as Zillow's vice president of broker relations. So he offers perspectives from both sides. Zillow's North Star, Bailey explained, is the consumer, and it often puts real estate brokerage space in conflict with Zillow, specifically when it comes to things like Zestimate and lead generation. Here's another quote from him. "I think there's space in this industry for all kinds of companies, competitors, and platforms. There's space for iBuyers. There's going to be a certain seller that, because of desire, ease, timing, etc., may want to use that type of platform." He dispels some myths, and one of the myths is that Zillow will shut current agents out of the platform. He said, "I believe acquiring the technology company will provide a valuable service to consumers and agents, and they will want as many parties to utilize the product as possible." There's another concern they heard from agents that they'll be using a platform owned by a competitor. Zillow announced it'll become a licensed broker, which we've talked about on the show before. And he said, quote, "So what?" He said, "Anyone could get into our business. Getting a real estate license is easy. The barriers of entry are low. The barriers of entry of getting a real estate license are low, but the barriers of success to be a great real estate agent are high." And then he goes on to the quote we've talked about before, that 87% of agents fail. He also said that real estate agents collectively spend $13 billion in marketing annually. Zillow's agent advertising business, Premier Agent, generated more than $400 million in revenue for the company in the fourth quarter of 2020. Here's this final quote, "They have a vested interest in real estate agents being successful because they spend money with their company." All right. What's the hot take? So Keller Williams, it's a fight. Brad Inman, it's the broker's fault. Nick Bailey, it's not really a fight.
Yeah, don't worry.
Don't panic.
Everything's going to be fine.
Where are you guys in the comments and also in Clubhouse? Where are y'all on this spectrum? Is this a fight? Is this not a fight? Is it the faults of our MLS, which I would tend to agree with that. What do you think, Dan? Is it a fight or not a fight?
Oh, those are my only two options.
Yeah, is it a fight or not?
Yeah, it's a fight. And it's been a fight with Zillow since day one. So them acquiring ShowingTime is not a new thing, is in regards to it being a fight. They've always been pushing to, take a chunk of our data and take a chunk of our business. Now, obviously, they started a brokerage, and now there's that. So I think it's always been a fight with Zillow, but I kind of agree with Nick Bailey, which is they're a tech company that bought a tech company. And, we have a little group called BMORE Contributors. If you want to go join that, that's awesome, with an exclamation point, BMORE Contributors. And the kind of, and Chris, my broker, pointed out, is that Zillow way overpaid. If you look at it just on the surface, because I think they charge like $5 a listing to pay for ShowingTime, to pay for the full version of ShowingTime for each listing. So if they have 1.5, 1.6 million listings on there, that's obviously not worth it paying 500 million, but they have a lot of, I forget who said it, but they have a lot of real-time data. Zillow can literally tune in right now and see how many showings are being scheduled through ShowingTime. So they just got more data. They paid for more data. And I think that will make them, I don't know if it changes anything. I mean, if it's still going to be offered to us, then we can still use it. But like Bright, I know Melissa, who is a contributor as well, and number one fan of the show, she just sent over that their Bright MLS is already reacting and going to provide other options. I know that our team is working on other options for showings. But at the end of the day, I think Zillow is just trying to stay relevant. They're trying to scare us. I think they're trying to say, look at what we can do. We spent a bunch of money. Here's what we can do. But they already had kind of not a showing service, but they already had contact agent to see this house. And it was, whether it was the actual listing agent or not, but they already had that there. Now they're just buying more data. I just think it's another way, you know, that they want to stay relevant. They want to stay ahead of the game, and they want to further put their foot on our necks and say, look, you can't keep up with us. You're never going to start your own MLS, your own national multiple listing service. They want to, you know, they want to knock us down even farther. So all that to say, yes, it's a fight. And, you know, the people or the associations that we pay are not reacting properly at all.
Curtis Lee says, Bright MLS response to Z buying ShowingTime. Bright is in final discussions with CenturyLock to provide their new Century Key showing service. Subscribers to both Supra and CenturyLock will be able to use Century Key. We're also vetting several other solutions and may continue to expand showing service offerings over time. So yeah, I've heard that. I've also gotten a lot of advertisements lately on Facebook for alternate showing services, which I think is timely and entertaining also.
Yeah, they're listening, not just reading what you type.
Michelle West said, market leader is owned by Zillow also? Yes, it is.
Are they? Wait. Are they?
Yeah, they were acquired by Zillow in 2014.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that what KW uses?
Well, because I looked it up and it says Constellation Web Solutions owns market leader. So
maybe is it? So maybe they sold again. Adam Johnson said Zillow buys EXP. So yeah, I think I made a bunch of people mad the other day when I commented on a friend's post. I said, will Zillow buy KW or EXP first? And man, those were fighting words for some of those agents. It was pretty funny. Michelle West says it's a fight. So she thinks it's a fight. Curtis said only 15% of real estate transactions close from lead gen source like Zillow. That means 85% came from your sphere, open houses, OMG, personal referrals, good old hard work. If you aren't lazy, you'll be just fine. The sky's not falling. All right. So Curtis Lee is if I paraphrase for you, he's saying there's not a fight.
Yeah.
All right. So here's my take. It's not a fight. Plenty of room in the industry for a big box store like Walmart to come in and sell properties. Plenty of room in the industry for independent real estate agents to have massive levels of success by providing an extreme consumer experience that is unlike the big box store can possibly provide at the price that big box store is charging. So I think there's room enough for both. I think it'll be a good cleansing in the industry because like Nick Bailey said, and like Ramsey Stewart said, one of the commenters on the show, the barrier of entry to real estate is very low, 87% failure in the industry. And I think you're going to have either more people fail or more people go to work for the big box stores like Zillow.
But we know what the big box stores did to Main Street America and did to the mom and pop shops, right? Now, I know this is a different analogy because real estate is very personal and it's, you know, right. it's all based on how you create your consumer's experience, you know.
Wait, let me interrupt you 1 second. Michelle West, she says, got to get back to family reunions. She's a KW agent. Talk to you soon. Sorry, Ray agreed to disagree. I'd be interested to hear, Michelle, if Zillow is a sponsor this year at Family Reunion, because I know they normally are.
Yeah, and if Gary gets up on stage, because he's obviously being critical of it. So if he gets up on stage and talks about it, so
he was critical of it when I was there, and yet invited Zillow to be on stage and talk about their. It's the weirdest thing, and that's where I met Greg Schwartz, by the way. All right, so anyway, what were you saying, Dan? My opinion is, it's not a fight. There's room enough for everyone in the industry. Zillow predicts to be able to close about 10% of transactions in 5 to 10 years. That's a long way away, and it's only 10% of the transactions. That leaves 90% of the transactions closed in other ways.
But those other ways are still Boomtown and other lead gen services, right? So,
I think there's only 5% more that come from those other online lead gen sources currently.
So that would be going to the 15% that Gary said. Sorry, Curtis.
Yeah.
But think about what has our reaction been? Our meaning NAR. What has our reaction been to creating that national website where consumer facing website?
I totally agree with your take that the reason why Zillow has become a giant and the reason why the consumers have that as an option,
which was who? That was Brad Inman. That was on Inman. Was that Brad's take himself?
Yeah, that was Brad. It was his own article. But I totally agree with him in that and placing the blame squarely on. Now, I think a couple of the reasons I kind of disagreed with, but overall, I agreed with Brad's article as a whole and his take that, yes, this is the fault of real estate agents themselves as a group not being able to provide the consumer with what they're actually looking for as far as data goes. I totally agree with that.
So like I said, I know it's a different experience than walking into, I need a new shirt and I'm going to walk into a local just my local store and get that, this is a dude who lives, I live in Rancho Cucamonga, by the way. So it's a dude who lives in Rancho Cucamonga, from Rancho Cucamonga, and he started a business here. You're going to get a different experience than walking into one of the big box stores. So I think you can equate that to, real estate. You're going to get a different experience working with me. Obviously, visually, you're going to get a different experience working with me, but how I handle my clients and how I negotiate and work for my clients is 1,000% different than most agents out there. So I can guarantee that because I know who I am as an agent. But to just kind of, and I'm not discounting what you're saying, Ray, at all. I'm just saying I'm kind of going after NAR a little bit, but to discount it, no, it's fine. They bought it. It's just a showing time. We'll provide another showing opportunity or showing service for our agents. They can't dismiss it. And I've said this about a million different things, which is why we need to start our own National Association of Bearded Realtors, not NABR, that includes everyone. But, their reaction to these things is extremely slow, and
very inadequate.
So that's where I would worry about what you're saying is it's not a fight, that there's plenty of room for everyone. I would agree, but
I think until NAR does something, we'll all be using Zillow for stuff like that. I'll continue to use it because I'm basically buying Zillow's database for cheap.
I get better stats on my listings from Zillow.
Yeah, their CRM is actually easy to use and kind of legit.
So what I use is our photographer sets up a website for each property, and then obviously all the showings and the YouTube video and all that stuff. And then Zillow, it goes out to Zillow. I use those two things, not my own MLS. I don't have the access to those stats. Who's seeing my listings? I don't have that through my own MLS.
Yeah, and you can't retarget them. All right, so I'd love to bring you in Clubhouse. If you have an opinion, raise your hand. I'd love to know before we get to the next story, because we got like 3 more stories to cover in like 15 minutes to do it. So if you are in Clubhouse and you want to make a comment specifically on this Zillow topic,
me on Twitter.
We've hit the servers pretty hard. I've got a couple of warnings while it's on Clubhouse. So if you've tried to raise your hand and you have not been brought up, then you could try again. I'm PTRing. I'm pulling to refresh. So I don't think we have any comment. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining us. Ashley's in there, so thank you, and Christian. All right, so no more comments. I think we're good. Then we'll end with a comment from Adam Johnson. Zillow lies.
So I think he's saying it's a fight.
So I think Adam thinks it's a fight. All right. Well, Dan, why don't you get into the next article? Like I said, we have about 10 to 15 more minutes, and we have 3 or 4 more articles to get through. That kind of hit the main meat of the news story, and we're going to chop up each one of those segments into its own segment, and we'll release those in the BMORE Chop. So if you're just joining us on Clubhouse or you're just joining the live stream and you missed that discussion, look for the replay. Be sure to subscribe, hit that bell so that you are alerted to when we are going live next time. If you're on Clubhouse, just click on my face and then click follow and hit that bell there too.
Click on it.
All right, Dan, without further ado, let's talk about home builder confidence.
It improves.
Oh, good. All right, next story. No, I'm kidding.
I just like to do that every now and then for Matt, so he can just that's it. That's the clip.
Yeah, there you
go. What was the one? What are interest rates doing, Dan? They're up.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, real quick. So buyer demand for newly built homes continues to surge, and that is keeping builder confidence high even as material prices climb. Builder sentiment rose 1 point, which is not a huge rise, but in spite of land not being available, materials and labor all being more expensive, it's still rising. So it rose 1 point to 84 in February, according to the latest National Association of Home Builders Housing Market Index. And remember, anything above 50 is considered positive sentiment. The index stood at 74 a year ago. So we're in a good spot. Now, if they could just catch up, because we're about 4 million homes short. This is a quote from the NAHB chairman, Chuck Folk. And I never know if we're saying his name right. It's Fowke, Falk. I don't know, but let's say Folk. Lumber prices have been steadily rising this year, and it hit a record high in mid-February, adding thousands of dollars to the cost, which we covered last week, I believe, Ray. Adding thousands of dollars to the cost of a new home and causing some home builders to abruptly halt projects at a time when inventories are already at all-time lows. He goes on to say that builders remain very focused on regulatory and other policy issues that could price out households seeking new homes in a tight market this year. Then the article goes on to say, while prices are a concern in both the new and existing home markets, there appears to be very little pullback in buyer demand. Of the index's 3 components, current sales conditions held steady at 90. Traffic of prospective buyers rose 4 points to 72. So people are becoming more comfortable with the Rona and getting out there. So to see that one go up, because it's been low for a little while, to see it go up is pretty cool. And then sales expectations in the next 6 months, however, fell 3 points to 80. So, and I do have a friend that works in, all phases pretty much, but from the very beginning phases of finding the land and new construction. We're going to have him on the show, and then he has some connections to some CEOs of some very big builders. So we're trying to get them on to get the hot take on this, to get the current take on this, because it's interesting to me that these home builder sentiment's still going up, even though lumber prices are, I don't know, when are they going to stop rising? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, initially, but didn't they say it was the supplies from China that were delayed due to the Rona, and that was what was causing the increase? And now I guess those supplies are.
But then there was more coming in from Canada, but then that got too expensive because of tariffs and all that stuff. And
well, one of the things I know for sure is that when a builder is building a spec home, they already have everything ordered as soon as they break ground. So I've been told that on several occasions that our builders here locally, in order to get it done, are just ordering everything they can right up front.
Yeah, and so that's what we want to get. That we'll get my buddy on here, and he'll be able to break it down. But it's interesting that more people are opening up to seeing them, and and I always want to hear like takes from everyone else around the country, because here I don't help people a lot of new construction because of special assessment taxes and HOAs. I don't think that's the case everywhere. So it's but it is imperative that these the lower third of the market gets help, because we're struggling.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's go on to the next article too.
Hey, Ray, what's up with mortgage demand?
I'm glad you asked, Dan. Mortgage demand falls further as rates rise at the fastest pace in months.
Oh my God. What does that mean, Ray? Should we read the article?
Another week of rising rates spurred homeowners and buyers to pull back from the mortgage. Is this the end?
Oh, we should all quit the business. And Zillow. What happened?
Mortgage volume fell 5.1%. Applications to refinance a home, which were sensitive to weekly rates, fell 5%.
No.
They were 51% higher than a year ago.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, mortgage applications to purchase a home fell 6% for the week.
Oh no, we're all dying.
But they were 15% higher than a year earlier.
By the way, still not even to spring yet. It's February. Is it? I don't even know. It's February, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Purchase volume is falling less because of higher rates and more because record low inventory. This is a quote.
But wait. What did when they're mortgage rate rise and that kills purchase volume? Or what did they rise to?
What? Oh, it's hang on. Let me find it. The rate is increased from 2.98% from 2.96%.
Two.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to say it, but not 2 basis points, less than.
Yeah. Let's see. Prices also rising at the fastest rate in over 6 years. The average purchase loan size was $412,000. Okay, let me get to you this quote from Matthew Graham, Chief Operating Officer at Mortgage News Daily. At a certain point, the market momentum becomes its own justification, and bond prices will snowball to lower and lower levels. When bond prices fall, rates rise. So there you go.
Yeah, 15% higher than a year ago, and we're not even to the buying season yet.
All right, so why don't we cover, you want to do the HUD extends for, I mean, that's kind of the story. HUD extends forbearance. You can just give us the bullet point on that, and then I'll give the bullet point on the CoreLogic, and then we'll end the show.
Cool. Yeah, so, and then there was another one. There's another article that I'll add to it, but the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development on Tuesday extended the Rona, remember we can't say it, the Pandy, you could call it, extended the Rona foreclosure and forbearance moratoriums for FHA and USDA loans to June 30th, 2021. Remember, they extended it last week, which we covered on the show for Fannie and Freddie. It also extended the deadline for first legal action and reasonable diligence timeframes to 180 days. So the bullet points are extending the timeframe for homeowners to request the start of a COVID-19, oops, dang it, I said it, a Rona forbearance It proves I'll just read anything you put in front of me. Forbearance from their mortgage servicer through June 30th, 2021, expanding the RONA forbearance to allow up to 2 forbearance extensions of up to 3 months each. So if you requested it before June 30th, 2020, you get 12 months. That one's 12 months. Now you can have 2 extensions, so another 6 months on top of that for 18 total. Expanding the use of FHA's streamlined RONA loss mitigation, home retention, and home dispositions options to all homeowners who are behind on their mortgage payments by at least 90 days. If you want more on that, that's from Housing Wire. And then I found another Housing Wire, and just the headline that the, so this is awesome. This is obviously forward movement and giving people relief where they need the relief. But this headline is forbearance rates dropped to 5.29%. Let me bring up that article real quick.
Yeah, I saw that.
So
the rate of forbearance is going down, even though they're extending it, opening up to more and more people.
Yeah. And remember, when this first started, what did it hit, Ray? 20%, something crazy, 15%, something.
Yeah.
And then we settled kind of after a few months in the 9% range and then the 8% range. And then we kind of reported on it once a month, how it was going down. And now it's at 5.29%. And that's the lowest level in almost a year. And that is the week ending February 7th. So that's a fairly current stat there, Ray.
Nice.
So, obviously, this is a good thing in getting help, but to have the forbearance rate that low during a pandemic where people were forburned and furloughed and lost their jobs, these stats are getting better. That's good.
Okay, so let's go to the main competitor of Zillow, as announced themselves. CoStar came out earlier. Was it earlier this year or the end of last year? And said that they are gearing up to compete directly with Zillow, and they purchased HomeSnap.
And what is CoStar, just for people who don't know, like me?
CoStar for years has been the place to list commercial property. They're commercial property listing and data brokerage service, and so they would also provide tons of data on comparable properties that were difficult to find in the open market. So CoStar made an acquisition of HomeSnap, which is kind of the consumer and residential facing side of that equation, and hopefully make that better for real estate agents to use. Meanwhile, they're making a late takeover bid for CoreLogic. Now, we reported a couple of weeks ago that they were thinking about this because that's what we saw in the news too, but this is their actual bid. By bidding over $95 a share, CoStar offer would value CoreLogic at $6.9 billion. In a letter to CoreLogic's board, CEO Andy Florence said that they were stunned to read that the Stone Point and Insights offer had been accepted.
Wow.
So we do not believe that the pending transaction maximizes the value for CoreLogic stakeholders, and we continue to believe the strong strategic rationale for the combination of our two companies, Florence said in the letter. The fact that CoreLogic stock continued to trade well above the pending transaction price is clear indication that the shareholders will agree with us. So to summarize, they accepted an offer, and they are in the pending status. But shareholders have to agree to this purchase price. So CoreLogic comes in and says, we will offer you, I think it's 20% higher than the accepted offer from Stone Point Capital and Insight Partners. So basically saying that, hey, here's an offer for 20% more. What are you going to do, shareholders? And the shareholders now have to make a decision, which, I mean, they would be dumb to say, let's continue with the current pending transaction. So I don't think they'll approve it.
Yeah, so it's actually not pending. It's active under contract.
Right.
Because they can accept other offers. And I mean, we mentioned for Zillow, talk about buying up data. I mean, CoreLogic is huge.
Yep.
What if NAR would have thought of this?
I know, right? CoreLogic has been battling with investors jointly own who have economic equivalent interest, approximately 15% of CoreLogic outstanding common stock, blah, blah, blah. That's all like investor talk. A compromise was reached November 24th following the proxy vote was held to replace 3 of the 12 directors on CoreLogic's board. Funds managed by Stone Point Capital and Insight Partners agreed to buy CoreLogic earlier this month and deal with any equity value of about $6 billion. That's when CoStar made the offer worth $86 a share, according to Bloomberg. Same, under the same terms, CoStar's latest proposal, CoreLogic shareholders would receive 10 cents a share that's a tenth of a share of CoStar in exchange for each share of CoreLogic stock.
Interesting.
That values at 95.76. So we're losing all of our Clubhouse people because they don't like hearing about these numbers, and I understand that. The big ticket item here is that CoStar is trying to take over CoreLogic, and they've already talked about how they want to be the competitor with Zillow, and they need data in order to do that. And this could be the way to get it. Now,
and didn't they kind of say we want to do it for realtors, but will they?
Yeah, they said they wanted to be the realtor's solution and competition for Zillow. So we'll see.
Right. But will they?
All right, we'll end the show with this quote. And then we'll talk about where people could find us. This is from Eric B. Henry. He said, my take on these things regarding that stat on 10% of Zillow's leads closing. There are too many of us realtors that think like independent contractors and don't like to be told what to do and when to do it.
Yeah.
Zillow has control over their staff because they're employees. And if they don't do their job on following up, then they will fire them.
Yeah.
Maybe more brokers can figure out a way of firing or letting agents go for not following up with their leads. The big real estate teams are the ones that succeed. I think that's how he ended it got a little long in there, but I think that's how
it's got the ellipsis at the end, so it cuts off. But that's exactly what my point was to what my brokers do. You know, we literally sign a contract with them saying we have to do A, B, and C. And I always joke with them is, hey, I'm better than a year ago when I started with the team, but I'm still only doing about 20% of what I should be doing. You know, like I still don't maximize my full potential, and it's a slower process for me specifically. But I 100% agree with them, and it would also force a lot of agents out of this business and make the ones who, because I always say there's a huge difference between the ones. You know, I would say it's about what 5% of us, Ray, that consider this is our job. We are realtors. We are agents, and this is our 100% money making, income providing job. And we focus on being better every day, just like if you had a boss over your head saying push more widgets.
Right.
You know, I would say that number's out of however many realtors there are in the world, I'd say that number is a lot smaller. And I totally agree. If brokers had more of an effect or a mindset of, if I bring on more agents, I can make more money. But if I bring on less agents, but agents that produced, then I think they would switch.
Right.
So I totally agree with them.
There you go. It's got to be the control of the quality control of the consumer end experience. That's going to be key.
Boom.
All right, Dan, tell everybody where they can find you.
Right there. D-Lettergrocks everywhere. DLUDWIGRCKS. Go find me on Instagram. That's the best place.
Yeah, and I'm on Instagram too at Ray Zorback. That's RAYZORBACK. Everywhere where good Razorbacks are sold. So we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining the show on here on Clubhouse. Bye, everybody.
Bye.